So I'll start with your first reaction on budget 2023. Smita ma'am, will start with you. What are your first thoughts on this budget?
So, okay, overall, it seems to be progressive in the sense that there's a more of a focus to the larger perspective as well. It's more inclusive and growth driven, and also addresses few of the areas which would have required immediate rectification. It's heartening to see that the sustainability measures are also interwoven in it. So instead of just being, let's say, a corporate specific focus, which has been the accusation that one has been at the receiving end over the past years, there seems to be more of a slant to cater to the larger populace, and also outlines the policy as to how it should be going forward. There's a focus on domestic manufacturing, exports, value addition, green power. So that is good to see. There could have been more on tax front, but at least the biggest relief that everyone has is at least there's no new taxes. So overall looks balanced. But yeah, that's where it is right now. That's my
Yeah, all the
initial
tax lawyers seem to be unhappy about
We're
that.
very happy. We're very happy. I think most tax lawyers have been dealing with repercussions after the government rolls out a tweet, and then you have to just deal with that instead of a proper notification. So I think we overall happy that there are no new taxes at least this year. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's the initial bit.
Manisha ma'am, you're the senior
So
most
just
amongst us, I
just
think,
adding
and
it to her,
longest
that's
as a
a
tax
mess of
lawyer.
homework for the tax lawyers. So that's an added advantage. But I'm sure, this is very happy approach for the general middle class people. They're really happy about it. It's actually we can say we can imagine this being before elections. This is a good gift for the general people at large, who would be falling under below 7 lakhs category. So that's one good part to look at it. And first, the most important is what they have given is a lot of importance to agriculture and technology aspect to it. So technology budget, for the tech security, data protection, lot of emphasis has been on that, and AI is going to be another way to look forward. And yes, of course, we need to develop upon the AI a lot, because to make India having AI facility, which we have it of our own, then procuring it from other places are going to have a lot of economical effect. And that being so, plus for what we need to look at is now how we are going to, the lot of budget has been allocated for the security, for the data security. So that data, how that we bring in that effectively is going to be the next step to look at. So budget is one thing, but when we are calling for such a big growth, because we are already facing lot of issues as regard to the data security and even the data protection, because that will be coming to the next part of the session. But
Yes.
overall, the budget has been really, a long-term budget, which we can see a progressive image, which has been, actually manifested. And it's now for us to make it, successful. Pass it
Right.
on to
Aditi, your initial thoughts, and also this, even yesterday we had Mr. Tejasvi Surya talking about the Amrit PD, or the youngsters, and the focus on youth in this budget. So, as a young lawyer and as a tax specialist, what are your thoughts? Are you happy with the allocation that they've made for the for technology for youngsters in general, and also the push for digital change, especially the e-codes project, etc.?
So I think this is a very promising budget. Like ma'am also said, it's a long-term budget. Uh, it remains to be seen how well those promises are implemented, but it's a very promising budget to start with. From the point of view of ease of doing business, I'll come to the lawyer part later. Any businessman will look for primarily four things in order to do business: stability, robust infrastructure, good dispute resolution mechanisms, and ease of regulatory compliances. A common refrain you will hear from businessmen is, "अरे मैं धंधा करूं या फॉर्म भरते बैठूं." I hear this constantly, but you have to do it. मतलब, there has to be a balance between due diligence, compliance with law, and on the other hand, also being able to conduct business smoothly. So from that point of view, I think the budget seeks to implement a few good measures. There is, of course, a hike in capital expenditure, as Mr. Tejasvi Surya also mentioned yesterday. There are talks of getting additional airports, railway stations, etc. So of course, that's always a good thing in order to conduct business. The introduction of Vivad Se Vishwas 2 for settling contractual disputes, I think should go a long way in curtailing litigation. They could have explored introducing arbitration to tax disputes, but that is not nowhere in the horizon yet. But that can also be something that may be considered later. Then the unified filing process, which the FM seeks to propose, if that is indeed implemented and it goes through without any glitch, then that will, I think, be a really big help in making regulatory compliances easier, because then you just need, there's just one common portal that you'll need to fill all your information in. Coming to the tax lawyer part, I think any budget is always good for tax lawyers, whether or not there are
It's a
changes.
win-win either way,
It's
right?
a win-win. But yes, I think as Sharanya in the previous session also mentioned, there's not too much going on from the tax perspective. There are some changes. Uh, for the middle class, I think the increase in slab is a good relief. And yes, from business point of view also, there seems to be some promising measures. So that's my initial impression of the budget.
Right. Manisha ma'am, you spoke about data protection and cyber security.
Yeah.
So I have two parts to my question. So first is, do you think that the legal framework that is there for cyber security and data protection, is it robust enough to meet the challenges that would arise in the implementation of the digital public infrastructure which is envisaged in this budget? And the second part is, what do you think would be the key principles, according to you, which should form central pillars in creating a framework for developing and deploying AI in key fields, say legal or finance or banking sector?
See, look, any as in today, what we see, any legal structure, there is a law, there's a flaw also. So that's something which is very commonly seen in our country and everywhere else also. Because see, the technology is something which is ever evolving.
Right.
So there is going to be lot of no mechanism which we get today can be a robust mechanism. There's going to be constant development to it. Policies will be changing time and again with the technology. But yes, we need a stable law. Now today we are all depending on the Information Technology Act. Wherever we have to go back, that's the only backbone which we see as a statute. And some policies here and there which government again and again implementing. So data protection is something which we really need to, like when the government is thinking of, there has to be concrete, stringent provisions which we need to come up with, which will give more stability to the law and legal businesses. So if people are looking at investment and to come forward with, even for the ease of doing business. Now today, when we look at technology, there's so many intermediaries, Twitter, Google, or even Facebook, WhatsApp, they're facing a lot of litigation in India. And there is no clarity. So that clarity needs to be brought in. So data protection bill, we are really looking forward for. But at the same time, there are a lot of comments on it, and that needs a revision, and government needs to, or the legislatures need to give a complete thought process on it by taking experts' comment very positively and the practical solutions to the all problems. That is very important to look at, because technology is something which is going to take us a way forward, and that's the focus budget also has. And you can say blame it to the COVID or blessing of the COVID. We have, as a country, we were somewhere very back in technology for our development, but we have come very forward, and there has been a fast movement. Like each one of us have accepted technology as a part of our life, and that's if it become a common man's affair, then the law needs to be that robust And certainly, we are not, we do have policies in place, we do have certain policies and regulations and the backbone information technology, but that needs a relook at and needs a development, and we need to really seriously give it thought, and a lot of work is required for the security reasons. Because once that stability and confidence is there, because we've seen that Air India instance and even Domino's, the data theft which happened in 2021. These are the major, I'm telling. There are so many small, that's
Yes.
happening all around the world. We cannot blame India for that. But yes, we need to be better regulator and well equipped with the laws to protect these issues.
Right. Smita ma'am, your thoughts on this, and also as a indirect tax practitioner, I have to ask you. So, are you happy with the reduction in the compliance burden or decriminalization of certain provisions and its overall impact in the business environment, or do you think is there room for further simplification of the compliance this year?
So I'll get to this one. So decriminalization of offense is something that has been unasked for a while.
Right.
Okay. And because if we look at this space in which we operate, from the tax administrator standpoint, GST is just, let's say, around about to be 6 years old, and it's a relatively new tax structure regime, and there's so much more to be done and so much room to grow. From a taxpayer standpoint, it on the other hand seems to be it's already been 5+ years. Why have the issues which have been continuing for so long still not been addressed? Within that space, if the system as such is nebulous and the tax technology bone, like while I'll say we've come far ahead than where we were, but the way the GST system was designed, a lot of it was also prefaced on the fact that the technology system would also support it, which unfortunately didn't pan out. And then what happened is that you had this slew of notices and arrests and so on and so forth happening without there being the adequate infrastructure or something to even trigger that. So decriminalization of offenses, especially on, let's say I've not furnished the information, you can't arrest me for that. So if those have happened, it's a welcome relief. It's on the basis of recommendation of GST Council, which was much awaited. So it has happened. Also, one relief which would be relevant for the MSME sector also is that the threshold has been raised from 1 CR to 2 CR of the tax amount for when a prosecution can be launched. So the only aspect which has been left out is the fact that if you're issuing fake invoices, then none of this matters. But the larger perspective on whether compliances or the system around it has reached the kind of stability that one would want, we're still, I think, we still have a far way to go. More so because if you think about it, the law is still evolving. Right? The authorities are still trying to outline how the law is going to be. And within that, the compliance framework has been, if you see the kind of returns that were envisaged at the time of inception, vis-a-vis where we stand now in terms of filing frequency, the minefield around input tax credit, like in GST or any VAT system, the concept is that the credit should be seamless. Okay. But now it's more like you playing a minesweeper game. You have to figure out, okay, so this, all of this has been excluded, so whatever is left, that's what I get. So all of that, till those elements are not addressed and tweaked, even my flexibility of whatever the portal, GST portal lets me do in terms of filing of return, can I tweak this, can I do that? Till those are ironed out, the kind of relief that businesses are looking for will not be met. So I think there's a bit more of a harmony that is required. This is right now, let's say it's a good starting point, but there's a bit more to be done, I would say.
Right. Aditi, I'll come to you next. So, we all know ChatGPT is the buzzword in town. So, AI in the legal sector, are you looking forward to it? Are you wary of it? Do you think it'll make lawyers out of job?
No, I do not think it will put lawyers out of job because. So I think there's a big distinction between artificial intelligence and automation. A lot of the times I see people confusing the two. To put it very simply, artificial intelligence is when you train or make a machine learn to take an independent decision of its own without human interference. Automation is outsourcing mechanical tasks performed by a human to a machine. I personally feel that the legal system or the legal sector is based entirely on decision making at different levels, whether it is litigation, whether it is the corporate side. And I really don't think independent decision making, at least as of today or in the near future, should be left to machines. Two reasons. One, first, the obvious reason being why one needs human interference in matters of liberty, or we need not go that far. Even tax liability, money is a big thing for people. There are privacy concerns and there are accountability concerns. You cannot hold a machine accountable.
Right.
So, what I think we need to push for the time being is automation instead of AI. We can have automations at all levels. Speaking for litigation, right from filing of the case to having the case listed to completion of the pleadings, this can all be automated and it can go off without a hitch. But the decision, say, to file a case, that should not be left to a machine, and that is where really it is the lawyer's job to take that decision. So I think lawyers can rest assured, nothing is going to happen
Yeah,
to
I
us.
think many lawyers will be happy with that answer.
I just want
Of
to
course,
add
ma'am,
one
please add to
point
that.
to this. Now, what we what AI can be used is for the documentation management and even the case management. So those are the major important things. Anyways, we have started. Chief Justice have really taken a lot of initiative. So AI can help in that.
Yeah, and I also think it's about a change in the psyche. Like, till we had e-filing mandatorily, we could never imagine that a time would come where we don't want to file physically at all. And there are so many lawyers and law firms who have completely gone digital. And now even the Chief Justice mentions, yeah, I want a paperless court, and who now find it, like I can see ma'am with her iPad or her device, find it more comfortable to be in a paperless environment. So I
Absolutely.
think AI is also going to be about familiarity, and once people get the hang of it, probably they'll adapt to it much faster. Uh, Ma'am, while the mic is with you, I'll move on to the next question for you. So, ease of doing business, like everybody has been speaking about that. So, what are your views on how this budget fares on, actually, and in terms of effective change for ease of doing business, which has been given by the government, and particularly in reference to simplification of the financial sector regulations, and how to strike a balance between the need for robust growth and simplicity in compliance.
So basically, what the even finance minister said is l- mm, less of governing, sorry, less government than more governing. So now we look at it that you will see they've even reduced the compliances law and decriminalize around 3,200 provisions. So and MSME the benefits and everything what they have assigned to, plus the compliances what have been reduced to, it's like a huge reduction, like 6,900 if I'm correct on the figure. So around that many compliances has been reduced. So there is a huge change which we are looking at, and the e-file, digitalization is going to make it more systematic and synergic to for the people to do the compliances. So if we counting on the compliances, because ease of business is something which many of are finding it difficult because of the compliance issues which are required. So those regulations which are if we see previous ones, we had complicated mechanism which one had to go through so many approvals, so many regulations, and so many compliances along with that. So that really this is something which is very a great, will be a great move if this is actually governed properly. Like, okay, reducing is something fine, but governance, regulatory mechanism which should work well as well. Because if you are reducing something, that should not mean that we are going unattended with certain issues and there are certain other complications, frauds, which we are encouraging to. So that's one way. But if we are looking at the ease of business, yes, the current budget gives a lot of platform for, and encouragement to the startup, MSMEs, Even women are encouraged towards the business. It looks very good allocation of funds. And agriculture is something which is connecting that with the tech, in what we heard in previous session also, is going to be a big move. And if that successfully, now when we are connecting agri with tech, we come, the India is full of rural sector. How are we going to handle that issue? Because reaching it out to the growers is something which need a lot of planning, lot of advertisement, promotion, which see, if they have made it very easy, then there are certain things also which will come when we are implementing these policies or allocations. How is it reaching to that grassroots level which has been proposed? That's something which comes in my mind. Ease of business, yes, we are calling it, it's all on paper, but effective implementation and looking at how all those, even any loans, facilities, everything has been given in the budget. It's a handful. Now, but how this, is going to reach to the people who are actually in need of it, even middle class sector today, even small scale businesses, how they are going to be availing these facilities, and where are we reaching? So we see certain, we come up with the schemes, we come up with the allocation, but that has not been reaching to out to the people who are actually been assigned with. So making easy to do business in India, it's not only for the outsiders, but it has to be within in India also. So it has to reach to the masses.
Right.
So obviously the educated people, those who are big businesses, are taking all advantage of those schemes. But making that to reach to actual grassroots level is something which need to be processed through.
Right. Ma'am, I'll come to you, Smita ma'am. So the GST tribunal and the centralized appellate advance ruling authority is yet to be constituted. So what is the impact on the overall business environment in the country?
So
Because
I'll
of,
extend it to the ease of business point that she was
huh.
making. If I'm, how will I be comfortable of conducting my business in a country if the regulatory regime, the system, even the grievance redressal mechanism is such which is fairly quick, transparent, and gives me clarity on how it's going to pan out. Now, GST Tribunal, the National GST Tribunal constitution of it has been up for deliberation for a while. There's a group of ministers who were supposed to, who shared their report, and it was supposed to be deliberated by the GST Council in the December meeting, which didn't pan out. And the fact that the GST Tribunal is not in place effectively leads to a situation where taxpayers have to go to the High Court to seek relief on even small matters like refunds. Now, that just adds up to the High Court's pending case backlog itself. And moreover, it's not the most effective way of operating it all. And deliberations around, what should be the technical member composition, do you need to have a judicial member, so on and so forth. All of that has been ongoing for a while. And it's really high time that they decide what is the final blueprint that's going to emerge. And once it is at this stage, we don't even have the fine print. Once that happens, then the implementation thereof itself will also take a bit of time, which is then adding to the number of cases that when one has. So lack of a GST tribunal has been severely felt overall by businesses across. Sorry, if that was the point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. Aditi, I'll come to you. So, the e-courts project, given India's population and the volume of litigation, how viable do you think it will be at the grassroots level, especially when we look at the trial courts where documents are in original, we have vernacular languages, and different sort of infrastructure in different states. So, and if e-courts were to be done in a phased manner, what do you think would be the major milestones in this?
So, like I said, automation is something that would really help here if it were to be done in a phased manner, and particularly in rural areas. First of all, there needs to be awareness, because if you go to rural areas, the impression that people have of the judicial system is that one goes to a dingy court, sits there for years waiting for their case to come, and ultimately are disillusioned with the system. That perception needs to change. People need to know that they have access to effective justice delivery mechanisms. They need to be made aware that there is something known as e-courts. We have smartphones, we have internet in rural areas also, so information can easily be made available to people. uh, what would also be helpful is setting up legal aid centers with an emphasis to go through litigation with the aid of technology, and not simply just legal aid by itself. So that I think, if the initial filing even is entirely digitized and automated, that would be a big milestone, I think, for rural areas. Um, Another thing which I would think is, if this really takes off, we would see a drastic reduction in matrimonial transfer petitions in the Supreme Court.
Yes.
We should be able to, because then that would mean there is an effective implementation of these mechanisms to places where it is really needed. So
Yeah.
Also, I think if we get all court records translated in English and automatically transferred to the appellate courts, so
Absolutely.
much of time and energy and effort that goes in creating those records
Their
time
AI
and
can
again.
help.
Absolutely.
Their
Yeah.
AI can help a lot.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
One other thing that I just wanted to add, e-courts is one thing. I mean, the traditional litigation system is one thing. The ADR systems that we have, or the tribunals that we have, a lot of them are crumbling under little infrastructure, no resources. Uh, I think we've all experienced this. So if some outlay could also be transferred there, it will reduce the burden of courts
Right.
in carrying out their duties. Uh, Speaking of MSMEs, actually, and speaking for myself, I have had terrible experiences with the MSME facilitation councils. Uh, uh, at consumer forums, even at times the company law tribunal, things do not move, things get stuck for lack of manpower, for lack of resources. So I think if some impetus is given to these forums also, it will go a long way in ensuring successful implementation of e-courts, because
Right.
their
Yeah.
burden will be reduced.
Right. Manisha ma'am, I'll come to you with one more question before I take closing remarks from all of you. So, what are your expectations on the national data governance policy? So, given that MeitY is in charge of data protection and data governance and the pendency of the bill, will the proposed data governance be a rehash of the policy framework, or what are your thoughts on that?
Though I'm not the expert in the field, but I'll try and answer your question. So, this data governance policy can be a game changer if it is coming in a proper manner and facet which we are expecting, and implemented again effectively. That's, we have a lot of policies. The implementation has been always an issue with us. That's so when we are expecting it, it is like, the mighty bringing certain changes and the data protection law coming in, because the previous policy has been scrapped, and because it was towards a lot towards and the new one has been introduced, and the data protection bill is still pending. There can be a jurisdictional overlaps, and those needs to be really carefully looked into by the legislatures, and the experts comments which have been in media and even been given for the bill should be seriously considered, and like a string, a very good base policy will really help businesses to stabilize in India. So, and the security and protection will be an important aspect which everyone is looking at, considering the way we are moving fast, adopting technology, and the things are going wrong with technology. So, we really
Right.
expect that from.
So, on that note, I'll just put an open question and you could all share your thoughts as your closing remarks. So, ma'am, let's start with you. So, budget 2023, do you think it's a hit or a miss?
See, if the ball has gone out and it's well catch, it is a good inning. But at the same time, it's again the government is making best effort, whatever possible, because and they are looking at certain future of India, and we have to trust what is coming to us and take it positively and make it happen. That's if the agencies who are going to be implementing it, they make it happen, then it's a big win. We see a good, stable India, promising India, and we already moving, we coming in lead, and technology wise we have reached to certain international standards. We have good place in the world market. So now it's we the people of India and the governing. So we have to
So you
take it
are hopeful of
positively. Yeah, we are
Amritkal.
very much hopeful. We need to be, because today world is looking at us, and what is coming, which is very thoughtfully done and planned for next 25 years or so. But if that is the implementers do it effectively, and even people like us cooperate, we are going to be, you know, in the world showing our face with proud.
Right. Aditi, your thoughts, budget 2023, hit or a miss?
I'm cautiously optimistic because it is a promising budget, no doubt, and we are at a, like ma'am said, the eyes are on us, so we have to be able to deliver whatever is promised, whatever measures we want to implement. But yes, I think truly this being the Amritkal, I think it's a good position to be optimistic.
Right. Smita ma'am, I'll come to you for your views.
So I think the field formation, as I say in the cricketing world, that is right. I mean, with this budget, I mean that they've done accurately. Now, how the rest of the game is played, that's gonna define how we eventually turn out to be. But the fact that at least the policy intent is there, that's good to see. And I am hopeful about the future, because if we have a highest number of youth and if we have a supporting system in place. There should not be a situation where we are not stronger than where we are currently. But yes, if the government could do a bit more, so while stakeholders consultation, frequent stakeholder consultation would help, and anything which is a niggling doubt which is going on, and as a tax professional, let me just quickly add one, if you just give a one-time GST amnesty scheme or any tax amnesty scheme for people who've made bona fide mistake, let's just get that out of the picture. All of this adds up to your ease of business measure. So those things, if one can take care of, then it is a happier spot to be in. But yeah, looks promising.
Right. So, on that note, I think we'll bring this panel to a close. I want to personally thank all our panelists for your insights. And I must say that it gives me a lot of pleasure personally that it's an all women panel. All these, and in fact, all the panels in our session have had more women than men. Generally, all discussions on finance and budget are manels, as they like to call it now. So, I'm very happy, and I think we had a very insightful discussion. So, thank you very much from the bottom of my heart
Thank you
to
for
all of
having
you.
us.
Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much.